Welcome again to our frequent podcast called Wear Many Hats, inspired by Ethan Hawkey. Throughout the year, I, David Punter, the Business Development Director for Hawkey Cleaning and Support Services, shall be interviewing prominent facilities management and procurement subject matter experts across a range of industry market sectors. It is these people with their wealth of knowledge and experience that will inspire the next generation of young professionals. Our objective is to share our guest stories and experiences to help motivate, engage, and inspire others into the industry. Through Wear Many Hats podcast, we hope our listeners will gain new perspectives, insights, and learn about strategies to develop their careers in the facilities management or procurement business. It gives me great pleasure to introduce
Richard Woolf. I'm the facilities director for Europe, Middle East, and Africa for Pax8.
Well, thank you very much, Richard, for coming in today. What I'd like to do, without further ado, is to ask you some questions. And I just wanted to have a little bit of an understanding, really. So, way back when you started in your work environment and stuff, how did you get into facilities management?
So we're looking back in the heady old days of the mid-90s, which were great days, I'm sure you recall. And
yes, I partially recall that.
Yes. When we were allowed to do things like drinking at lunchtime was perfectly acceptable and all things like that. And I worked for a company. First job out of university was a company called Purple Software.
Okay, that was an IT company.
That was an IT company. They developed software for the Cyan Organizer. I don't know if you remember the Cyan Organizer. It was a British success story, a British handheld computing device.
I think I was still in the 80s with the Filofax at that stage.
This was to replace the Filofax.
Okay,
and it was about the size of a piece of glasses, a glasses case. And we wrote software for that along with another couple of companies. Funnily enough, the other company came at one point and said they'd launched this mapping piece of software, which we laughed at. We didn't think it would be a success. That company's called Palm Top, and the piece of software is called TomTom. But that's a story for another day.
Okay.
But we worked. Well, I came and joined that as the first employee, and we took the company up to we did several rounds of fundraising, and we took it up to a reasonable size, and we survived the 2000 .com bang, and then we invested a lot of money in 3G technology, 3G, which has just been switched off as we speak.
Yes,
and we invested lots of stuff in gaming and stuff to do with that. And there was a bit of a hiatus in it getting to market. Around about 18 months later, we basically ran out of money.
Okay.
Which is unfortunate, but these things happen. And from that, I was trying to go and work out what to do, and I was responsible for all the buildings and everything else at the time, and I had a phone call from the MD of the people who used to fit our buildings up saying they had a project which had gone slightly wrong. It was based in Old Street. Would I mind, if I had any time going, he knew I had, would I mind popping down and having a look at it and just seeing if I could straighten it out?
Okay. And this is when you joined Ashwood?
No, this is before Ashwood.
Right.
This is Advanced Interiors of High Wycombe at the time. They still exist. They're now based in central London. So I went and straightened one project out for them, and then I straightened another project out for them, and along the way I met the guys who work at Ashwood Office Interiors on a project with these, and we started doing work together.
Okay.
And for the following 19, 20 years, I've been doing freelance work generally around FM and construction fit out of commercial spaces, and just helping people work in that arena. And it really, although what you do is build offices and stuff, actually it's nothing really to do with building offices. It's actually all about people and how organisations work and how they structure and how the communication works in those offices.
Okay.
And it's fascinating to go and see the nature of organisation as it's changed over the years, and again how it's changing now. Now we've come to the era of the hybrid office.
So, but your background academically was that you went down an IT route, is that right?
Yes, IT route. I went
Forgive me, I did research you a bit.
It's quite all right. I'm glad to know you did. I went to Manchester Metropolitan University. It was Manchester Poly when I first started there. and did business information technology there.
Okay.
And I also have, I think, a large dose of common sense, and that sort of seen me through most things. I think that the old adage, you can see many people have come through university and sometimes don't have that common sense thing, and unfortunately it shows sometimes when you go and ask recent graduates to write a letter and they've no idea how to begin.
Well, I wouldn't want to upset any of our listeners that are going down the graduate route, but I think that the two I would say is that common sense certainly is probably a big lumps of it for facilities management.
I recall back in, it must have been about 1997, we were doing something which required a mailing to 5,000 people. And in those days, we were still a small company, and it was all hands on deck to go and stuff envelopes and everything else. And we had at the time somebody working for us, a marketing trainee who was working for us.
Perfect job,
yes. They'd been to Cambridge, studied history of art, so perfectly qualified for that sort of thing. And I remember this person turning around saying, I didn't go to Cambridge for 4 years to stuff envelopes. And I replied, well, I didn't go to Manchester Metropolitan University for 4 years to stuff envelopes, but that's what's needed to be done, and that's what we have to go and do. And that's one of the things about working in a small company is you get to know the full spectrum of business and how an organisation works and what needs to happen to make an organisation work. Okay. And I think that's where I got my grounding in stuff like that, and learning to lead from the front. I had a very good chief executive who who tolerated a lot from me. I probably would have fired me.
So kind of a mentoring character in your career.
Yes, and I think, and it's something I always think about now in my career, about trying to help people who are in the early stages of their career, to help them along and give them advice and help them, because we were all learners once.
Are you still in touch with that chief executive?
I am overdue a phone call.
Okay. I assume that they may be retired now or something like that, but it's always good to keep in touch and stuff. So what is it, Richard, that you like about your facilities management role?
What I like about my role is that every day is different. It's sort of my dream job, almost. I'm traveling around Europe and often heading more and more globally now. In Europe, I have 12 offices in 8 different countries, and every one of them is different, and the culture is different. The health and safety standards are different, and the rules and norms are different as well.
Okay,
and that makes life really interesting. We're not trying to steamroller in a particular form or be prescriptive about how things are done in each office, but we do want a degree of uniformity and trying to get the balance between having a standard and a way and letting individual places show their own identity is really, really important.
So are those 12 offices, is it all European based, or do you have stuff in the Far East?
No, those are just the 12 in the if we include the Americas and APAC in what we do, we have 28 offices globally.
And do you go to those?
I came back from Denver 2 weeks ago, where we're looking at doing a new global headquarters. We're also looking at the moment, we're developing offices in Brisbane in Australia. We're kicking the heels on a satellite office in Montreal, and we've got things going on in the Far East. We know, for example, Manila is like to be a growth area for us in the next
very much
years.
So, yes, in the Philippines. So,
yes.
So, I mean, you obviously like the diversity of the role, and it allows you to travel quite a lot and things in the facilities. What else do you like about it?
I have a lot of independence.
Okay. Which is unusual.
I don't know if it's unusual. I think it's possibly what I was hired for. Certainly, in terms of Pax8, in terms of the facilities team, we very much work as a team.
How big is the team?
There's 2 of us.
Okay.
And so my CVP, who I report to, he very much is more into the strategy and the legals, and I'm dealing more with the design and the overall look of the place. And between the pair of us, we're able to develop something which looks really nice. And We really put our heart and soul. I really put our heart and soul into all our projects, and as I've always done for all my other projects. It's interesting coming up today to see you up here in Holborn, where we are, and I'm sort of sitting here thinking of the sort of half a dozen projects I can think of, sort of around this building within about half a mile or so, which I've done over the years, and when you work in, well, certainly I think that when you work in fit out and I try and do it quite relationally as opposed to transactionally. All your projects are your babies, and it's very nice to go back and see them a few years later and see what's happened to them.
So you would say you're a completer finisher?
Yes, I have been. Yes.
Okay.
I'm very much. I'm into the details. Do not try something foolish like giving me a 20-page spreadsheet on a Friday afternoon at 5 o'clock because you want to go and hide the Panama hat, because I will find it over the weekend.
So, to understand a bit about Pax8, it's an IT company that simplifies the way organisations buy, sell, and manage cloud solutions. But you are a facilities director that looks after the offices and their office space and things like that, rather than the service product that's being sold of the company.
Yes,
correct?
Yes. So we sell computer licenses. So on your computer laptop you've got there, you've got an operating system. You've got like Microsoft Office. You'll have Windows. You might have security software.
Right.
And often small companies go and make use of an MSP who goes and provides those solutions to you, and we supply the software to the MSP, and it's all virtual in cloud. We're not a box shifter like some of the older people in the market. We do it all by licensing, and so it makes us much more dynamic and much more flexible.
Okay. So what skills, let's say I'm a new graduate with common sense that's just come out there and things. What skills are required to do your job?
Attention to detail.
Okay.
You need to be good with numbers, and the importance of being able to read leases, extract the key information quickly, take a quotation or bid document or multiple bid documents and be able to go and compare them accurately.
Yeah.
You need a good lot of analytical skills and the ability to also see the big picture as well. If you're able to do if you have things like skills and things like AutoCAD and other packages like that, that's always helpful. You need to have a bit of a feeling for design.
Are you artistic?
I'd like to think I am, but other people would say otherwise. I've probably got two left hands. But you certainly need to go and you need to invest the time in looking what's around, following trends, researching, attending exhibitions, reading papers, and just seeing what's up there and following trends. I find it very amusing, for example, these days, we're putting oak's the current thing we're all putting in everywhere. And I recall that back in the 90s, early 2000s, we were going around ripping out oak everywhere. And it's really funny how what goes around comes around.
Yeah, it's a shame we can't upcycle some of the oak, really. There.
Yes. But I think it's a lot of the skill set here is about being able to go and look, analyse, and make a decision. Okay. And the biggest thing I found is often when I'm in places or I've come into organisations to help them is the lack of people to be prepared to just go and put their head above the parapet and say, we're going this way.
Okay. So do you think when you've obviously worked with Ashwood Office Interiors for well over 19 years, it must have given you a bit of a creative flair of what works and what doesn't in facilities management.
Yes, so Ashwood was great working with the guys at Ashwood. Ashwood is a firm from the Midlands. It's a family firm which provided a full find the full set of services across the interior sector, and I was there doing their project management for them, doing their design, and seeing their clients for them. And yes, it was. I did have the opportunity for design flair and trying to go and do that whole stage of the client process.
So you will be the person that's deciding on the materials in an office fit out or something like that. Is that right?
Yes, also the materials and the palette. I might not necessarily get down to the brand of screw or lump of metal, but it will be about, are we doing solid partitioning? Are we doing glazing? How do we want to do the glazing? What's appropriate for the customer? What the customer like and what the customer can afford? And often there may be a delta between the two.
But what consideration do you give to perhaps a cleaning company like Hawkey Cleaning and Support Services in terms of that material? If it's an office that's a symphony of beige, it's probably not the easiest thing to clean.
I have a very simple rule. I will not do beige and blue offices. They are banned.
Okay.
I cannot think of anything worse. But no, I think, look, when you come to material selection in the offices, one of the things often you have to impress on clients is we do not go down to that well-known Swedish hardware store and kit us out from there. You can do that, but it will not last. And when you're working in a commercial environment, things need to be slightly more robust.
Yes.
Because as we've all seen over the years, we love our end users dearly, but we've no idea how they manage to walk in, break things, which... or damage or accidents happen with remarkable regularity. So we have to make sure whatever we do is robust enough and built to that commercial standard.
Okay. So we touched on a couple of points on the skill sets required for your job. I'm just going to push that a little bit further. And so what else as a new graduate would I need to have to be a fully fledged, senior head of facilities management for an organisation like yours?
I think you need to have you need to have built within you, and I think is good leadership skills.
Okay.
And leadership skills are something which take a while to develop. You can do courses, or you just be it. If you want to be the role, be the role, be the role. And I think very much, and that's sort of how I've got there. It's often been said to me by relatives that they think I've made a career by just drinking tea and pointing at people. But
you have actually said, which I think quite rightfully is a trait of a leader, is that you put your head above the parapet.
Yes.
And that particularly is a leadership thing because you're owning that decision.
You have to own it, and sometimes that means taking difficult decisions. Sometimes that means having to go and deliver to clients or end users news they might not like, and having to sit there and they might express their unhappiness in one of many ways.
Okay.
Be it the project they want to do for price X. You have champagne tastes and lemonade wallets.
I use the expression a lot with clients and stuff. You're absolutely right. And you kind of have to manage those expectations.
And I think what's interesting from your perspective is about how you manage the soft services within the building, which I have which we do. I've done a lot of work on, and about thinking about perceiving how you deliver your sort of services. One of the things we've been experimenting in Pax8 as we've come out is to try and move away from the concept of the cleaner, who is this unseen, unknown persons who appear out of hours, and instead we've started introducing daytime hosts more and more who are around during the day, and it's really interesting because then people actually do self-manage by saying don't leave something in the sink because Clive has to clear it up or whatever. Or
do you think that's just giving it a fluffy name?
Maybe, but also what we have found is that people are taking more care of the facilities, and they also then do become more part of the team. It was one of our hosts' birthday the other week, and half the office went buying cake and singing happy birthday to them, which is all quite jolly. And I think it encourages people to actually take ownership of the facility. After all, if you're spending £2 million or so on a fitting out of a facility, you want it to stay in tip-top condition. And certainly my philosophy for all my sites is that I run to a hotel standard. I expect that when somebody turns up into a conference room, no matter what the time of the day is, that I want the conference room to look like no one's been in there. I want the chairs straight. I want refreshments on the table. I want tea and coffee on tap. I expect that.
Okay. I mean, I've noticed that on the Pax website, Pax8 website, you do have a lot of employee-led engagement groups. It'd be interesting to know if the host person was involved in that engagement group as well, because I know you've got women's resource group and various other ones, and environmental group. Okay. So I know this is a question I ask all of our people that come on board with this audio podcast, is that what does a typical day look like? Assuming that no day is typical, of course.
Well, it depends whether or not I'm in country or not.
Okay.
If I'm not in country, normally the first question on opening up my eyes is I'm trying to recall which country and which hotel I'm in, and which way do the taps work, and where do we go for breakfast. And it's not
what cultural head you've got to get into, or something.
And it's not as strange as it sounds. There are weeks sometimes where I can be doing 3 hotels in a week in different cities, and you can lose the plotter. For me, I like to go and check my emails and go off and have a bit of breakfast, and then head over for whatever meetings we're doing for whatever reason we're in town, be it site visits for the project we're working on, or meeting suppliers, or also more importantly, seeing and meeting the staff locally to try and understand. Depends where we are. On the project cycle as to what goes on on a particular visit, because each visit sort of has a process.
So it can be a combination of internal and external supplier meetings and things.
Yes.
So it could be face-to-face, or it could be on a Teams or whatever.
Teams or Zoom or whatever. I try and have, there's a theory says that I try and have Fridays as a non-travel day. It happens maybe 3 weeks out of 4, which tends to be a bit more of a relaxed day of doing sort of the general admin. The admin stuff, and it's important you try and build in time for that, for that quiet focus time, to sort of deal with all the stuff which you pick up whilst on the road.
Yes.
I spend a lot of time working in planes, in stations and airport lounges, and
it sounds like you're running quite a road show there, isn't it?
Yes. I have every power adapter known to man in my book. It's have Wi-Fi connection will travel.
And what would you say to someone by way of advice if they were starting their career off in facilities management?
The old adage about you have 2 ears and 1 mouth, and use them in that proportion. Listen and learn, and don't be afraid to jump in if you have a solution to a problem. There's no such thing as a bad idea. There's an idea which might not have been tested, and the most important thing is that people have permission to go wrong occasionally, and that's fine. Failure, we all learn from failure. Provided nobody dies, it doesn't really matter. And actually, do not be afraid to go and just experiment or try something new, because invariably it will be okay. And if it's not, it can normally be sorted out anyway.
Okay. And looking specifically at facilities management, would you say, has the way that facilities management changed over the years?
So I think we speak in a post-COVID world.
We do.
And of course, what was interesting is how during COVID, facilities management changed completely, and suddenly we were about putting up screens and bacterial stuff and hand washing and temperature stations and all sorts of stuff all over the place. And now most of that infrastructure has disappeared, or partially disappeared, because actually if you look around you sort of see bits of it still there, which you see the hand, you see the very sad looking
It's
hands.
only probably because it's screwed in. Not
or it's freestanding, or people just haven't taken it away. And of course, it's I think one of the things which is interesting in the post-COVID world is reflect how the nature of work has changed. I don't actually believe many people come to the office to work. What do you come to the office for? You come to the office to interact and meet and that sort of thing. If you need to do hard concentrating work, you probably want to go and do it somewhere else. You're more likely to want to do it working from home. And the office is all about collaboration. There are a couple of exceptions to that. I think for younger people starting off in their careers, often they do not have the space to go and have their own working environment at home. They're working on the ends of beds or kitchen tables, or they're in shared environments. So it's often not ideal. Whereas those of us who are a bit further in their careers obviously normally have a dedicated space we can work to. So I think that's really important. The other place where I think people need to be in a bit more is sales, because sales really is a team game. So that's much harder to do in a hybrid environment. But I think even that's you're seeing moves towards sales teams being in 3 days a week, like core days and other days. I think it's really interesting the move we're having and the discussions about the 4-day week and about are we going to move to the 4-day week.
Okay.
And I think there's a challenge for organisations to actually embrace it and actually make it happen rather than instead of letting it happen, to make it happen. I think the danger is we're going to run into the 4-day week by default. It's just going to happen, as opposed to an organisation positively embracing it and saying.
But do you think that the 3-day in the office, or in a co-working space, and the 2-day at home is a sort of like a compromise to that 4-day situation?
I think it depends on the organisation.
Okay.
If you're an organisation which employs people to do a task or a body of work, as opposed to being present, then I think the 3-2 split works fine. If presenteeism is actually more important to you, then it becomes a bit more of an issue. So I think every organisation has its own way of dealing with it, and also finding a way to motivate your staff and keep that whole thing together. What I think is important is whatever we do is we need to give people the spaces to absolutely produce their best work.
Correct.
Whether they're working at home or working in the office, we need to ensure that people have the right equipment, the right sort of furniture, most importantly, the right chair.
Yeah, there's ergonomically right for that.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
In the office, what we've tried to do at Pax8 is give them the best space they'll ever work with. We give them things like the really good coffee machines, because we recognise that that's actually one of the most important things you can do.
Probably, I agree.
Well, the coffee argument is a really interesting one, I think, because if you work on someone going out and spending $3 or $4 in the morning on a cup of coffee on the way to the office, and then maybe mid-morning popping out and buying another cup of coffee for $3 or $4, and also when they're walking out the office to buy that cup of coffee, they're gone for about half an hour. Actually, if you can provide a really good coffee in-house, the numbers soon stack up very favourably, both in time and cost. And cost as a benefit.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right on that particular issue, and I think that there is a massive wake up call for organisations that still.
I'm probably not allowed to name the company who supply our coffee, but I believe we buy the best coffee machines we can.
Yeah.
In our Bristol headquarters, we devote 25% of the space to amenity space for the staff.
Okay.
So not desks, soft seating, the ubiquitous ping pong table, the pillared table, Xboxes, you name it, leisure space, or not so much even leisure space. Just if somebody wants to go and work sitting on a sofa for the afternoon, actually fine, go and work on a sofa for the afternoon. There's a PowerPoint to plug into. Get on with it. It's all about saying, well, you can work at a desk if you want to, and we'll give you a really nice desk setting. But if you want to go and work in somewhere else, if you want to go and work in an office because you need an office for the job you're doing, go and book an office. If you want to go and work in a little focus booth, go and do that. And I think there's no one size fits all. It's about giving as many different options.
I think what's interesting is that the office space since COVID has actually almost mirrored a bit like a hotel bar, where there's different types of seating, different types of areas where there's raised seating, low seating, soft seating, this, that, and the other, where people can actually work agile in those particular environments and stuff. And it's an attractive place to go to work.
Yes.
I think facilities managers have had to wake up to making the workplace inviting rather than to lure people back into the office and things.
Absolutely.
So.
You allude to the beige office. Your beige office will not stand it. And you also need to go and create. You need to create events in the offices for people to come in. Bring the local street food vendor in and say, today is Taco Tuesday, and give people that real FOMO that if I'm not in the office, I'm not going to be able to go and get the whatever it is going on.
Definitely.
And we have office experience coordinators whose part of their role is to go and do that sort of thing. I'm thinking in the past year at Pax8, we've had a zoo visit with animals to go and experience. Massages going on, massages at desks.
Obviously appropriate to HR's conventions and stuff.
I don't know what sort of massages you're thinking of.
But anyway, just swiftly on. Do you think COVID and the way that we work has kept suppliers and procurers more at arm's length than before?
I think that whole thing about not being able to meet face to face, certainly made it difficult. I mean, I don't know. I don't know whether I'm old fashioned or otherwise, but actually, I although our meetings on Zoom and Teams are excellent. And I don't think they're ever going to go away. There's no substitute for actually looking someone in the eye while you go and handshake on a deal.
Correct.
For understanding, and actually going and seeing a product in person. And I think what's been really interesting over the past couple of years is just seeing how that sort of we've had to relearn how to do that. It's been interesting. And one of the things that I have noticed since COVID is that people have had to relearn lots of social skills. People forgot how to go to dinner parties. People forgot how to behave in an office.
Even common manners.
Yes, exactly. And it was fascinating to note, I think, comparing last year's Clerk and World Design Week from this year's Clerk and World Design Week. Last year it was okay, but this year really felt it was back with how it was pre-COVID. And it's taken I think a pipeline of people just to go and get just to get used to being with people being with people. We all got used to wearing our tracksuit bottoms and sort of shirts only on top. It's a very strange thing. And I guess one of the things is that I think we're going to sort of, all of us moving forward, will talk about things either pre-COVID or post-COVID. And there's this sort of missing 2 years of our lives where we all work around our screens.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm old school or something, but maybe COVID has actually, and this is probably an Americanized word, casualized society a little bit to forget some of the formalities that we used to have. And
I think the move to working, move on technology and stuff, I think we'd have got there, but probably got for another 10 years. If you'd said pre-COVID, I'm going to go and I'm going to have a Teams call now on my phone or at home, and everyone would look to you like you're. If you're in the IT sector, it was slightly different, but in the normal commercial sector, it wasn't looked upon so normally, and now it's the accepted norm.
Okay.
With one of my other hats on, I look after a shared community centre. And I recall at the start of COVID, and I turned around to my board of trustees and I said, we need to discuss what's going on here. We need to close this place up, close the community centre up. We need to go online. We need to have a board meeting. Here's this product called Teams. If you want to come and communicate and discuss this, you need to get yourself online on this product for tonight. And it's a voluntary organisation. I have, and my board it tends towards the slightly grey end of the scale. But needs to say, that evening at 8 o'clock at the board meeting, they all got themselves online because suddenly. It used to be quite fashionable to say that you didn't understand how to get online and all that stuff. Do you know? I don't know if you recall, people used to wear that like a badge or not. I don't know how to do online stuff, but suddenly you had to go and learn how to do online stuff, and people learned very quickly.
I think we were kicking and screaming into that sort of online thing, and it's been. I always say, with either a pandemic or a war, there is technology advances that happen. Whether it's on medicine and technology, the advances happen in those respects.
And we're not going to go and put it back again. We're not going to. We're not going to not be using stop using Teams or Zoom for meetings. What I think we're more likely to do is again do our meetings on a hybrid environment. I've certainly found that increasingly, that you'll do a meeting where we some people in the room, there might be some people elsewhere. Normally, I'm one of the ones elsewhere joining a meeting from whichever hotel room I'm in that particular week or office, and that actually it's helped bring people together.
Yes, I think it has. The only thing I would say about Teams is still people manage to not be on time, even on Teams and things. So what's your biggest regret in your career to date, Richard?
Regrets. It's funny. I try not to have them. Basically, because you can't change the past.
Correct.
So the past is in the past, and I remember what somebody once saying to me: "Well, you need to remember that every day is the first day of the rest of your life." So it's no good regret. It's no good having regrets or looking back about what could have been and should have been, because you can't change. You can't change those. You can deal with the situation you're in at the moment, and you have to keep looking forward and moving on.
Okay, but was there a decision? Was there something that happened? You talked about mistakes and owning those mistakes. Was there something that happened? I'm not saying it may be, an earth-shattering regret, but I'm sure you can't be perfect.
Oh no, I'm far from it. I've like everyone, I've dropped a few clangers over the years.
Sounds like a regret to me, Richard.
No, they're learning points very much. Anytime you really drop something, you do learn from it. So I really try and keep a very positive attitude on things, and I actually think sitting and dwelling on things and regretting and saying if only I had done X, Y, or Z at some time. You have to seize the moment as it comes, seize the opportunities as they come along. That's very much how I've ended up in this role here. I've seized an opportunity as it emerged.
Okay, so what I'll put it to you then is that, so there's nothing you think, maybe I should have done that differently.
I would say nothing major. Thank you for the invitation, but no, I have to say, because even those those failures or things may have been, all contribute to get you to where I am today.
Yes,
and actually, if I look at overall where I am today, I think I'm in a very good place. Okay. And to start with, as somebody once said to me, provided you can have 3 meals a day, you've got a shirt on your back and somewhere to sleep, you're doing all right.
And what, on the flip side, what's your greatest achievements in your career to date?
So I think there's 2 or 3 of them. There's the work I'm doing. I'm very proud of the work we're doing at Pax8 at the moment, where we've opened up the 185 person office down in Bristol, and we're starting to work on the world headquarters at the moment in Denver. So that I'm really pleased with. On the other side is some things which I achieved in COVID in the voluntary sector, of taking an organisation which is designed for dealing with in-person services with people, and turning it all around within the space of 48 hours, and effectively moved ourselves into an online broadcast operation on Zoom, running every day, and running everything from children's story time, because we had a kindergarten, running to adult discussion groups and everything.
Are you still doing that?
I'm not involved in it now. I haven't, unfortunately, with this wonderful role at Pax8, I haven't got the time to devote to it. And I very much feel if I haven't got the time to do something well, it's better to hand it on to other people.
But you've left a legacy.
I'd like to think I've left I think I left a legacy. And leading an organisation through COVID was very hard because
Yes.
for all the things people, all the wonderful work they see all the time, what you didn't see was the effect and the stress on staff and just trying to keep a team together. Actually, was really, really hard. And
Yes.
when I came out at the end of COVID, and I had been in post for 6 years, I'd only agreed to take it on temporarily for 3 months. All that time ago, and it was time to move on.
Okay. And finally, Richard, what things in life, it could be work or leisure, that gives you the greatest satisfaction and enjoyment?
Greatest satisfaction is actually seeing people happy with what you've delivered them. Be it I've run an event, be it I've provided an office. Actually, just somebody coming over and saying thank you, and actually knowing that you made a difference to someone's day or someone's working life.
Okay.
And that is extremely. It sounds very small, but it's extremely satisfying.
Anything else?
No, I'm
Very satisfied.
very, very satisfied. Yes.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that. And, that brings us to the end of our 16th episode of Wear Many Hats podcast. We hope that our listeners have found it an interesting listen. I'd like to thank Richard for taking the chair today. It's been, I think, thought-provoking, engaging, and we welcome feedback and support from our listeners. Thank you once again.